and welcome to another episode of The Influential Executive. And Lenka and I are so excited about this episode. We have again managed to schedule an interview with one of the big names in today's business world. When I say emotional intelligence,
I say Lenka.
I say Daniel Goleman. Daniel Goleman, he wrote a book on emotional intelligence and he basically claimed the topic. Now he's moving through the world speaking about it, educating leaders, businesses, companies, and it's both as simple and powerful at the same time. Daniel Goleman, so he wrote the international bestseller Emotional Intelligence. He wrote Working with Emotional Intelligence, Social Intelligence, and he's a co-author of Primal Leadership. And his latest books are What Makes a Leader, Why Emotional Intelligence Matters, and The Triple Focus, A New Approach to Education. He addresses some of the big questions in life. He was a science reporter for the New York Times, he was twice nominated for the Pulitzer Prize, and received the American Psychological Association's Lifetime Achievement Award for his media writing.
This episode is full of tips and practicality. So when you listen to it, whether you're a mother, father, team leader, manager, co-worker, you are going to tremendously benefit from this because we talked about topics as the stress and emotional intelligence, what emotions are about, what empathy is about, what compassion is about. So there has been lots of clarity suddenly in what emotions are all about. And we also asked very typical questions like, are women more emotionally intelligent than men? And was Daniel born emotional genius, or is it something that he had to develop as well? So now we will basically stop talking and give this amazing time to Daniel Goleman.
Daniel, welcome to the Influential Executive Podcast.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
That's great to hear. I'm so much looking forward to this conversation. When I think Daniel Goleman, I think emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence, I also think of Lenka.
How do you? It's good to hear, though.
So, I am pure logic. And Lenka is all about the feeling and emotions and stuff. That's like, it's kind of new for me. I only learned I have emotions a couple of years ago.
This is often true in marriages and in couples, that it's the woman who brings the emotional openness and the guy who says, oh my God. However, emotional intelligence, if you think about it, means being intelligent about emotions. It's combining both sides of the brain.
And I never realized how important emotions are. Now, we've been studying sales a lot over the past years. And one of the things that I learned is that every decision, every buying decision in that context is basically an emotional decision.
That's right.
And what comes after is the rationalization. So understanding that immediately explains why emotional intelligence is so powerful as a concept in leadership, in management, and in business.
There's a wonderful book by a fellow named Danny Kahneman called Thinking Fast and Slow. He talks about the two components of the mind. You have it there. Perfect.
Right there in the background.
Yes. So, but Danny points out is that the part of the brain which reacts immediately, that's the emotional part of the brain. Our impulses are emotions made into action. And then our rational brain thinks about it, but it thinks about it more slowly. And that's both good and bad. It means that we can be very open and we can motivate ourselves, positive emotions. However, if they're negative emotions, we can get hijacked. That is to say, we can find ourselves doing something or saying something that we regret later when the rational brain kicks in. So the art of emotional intelligence is balancing these two things and not getting hijacked.
So what would you say makes one emotionally intelligent? Are there some general characteristics?
Oh, yes. We've done a lot of research on this. There are 4 components to my model. The first is self-awareness, knowing what's going on, knowing what you're feeling, for example. Then the second is using that to manage yourself better, to be resilient under stress, not to let your toxic emotions take control, motivate yourself so you achieve your goals, keep a positive outlook, be adaptable. And then there's the third part is empathy, sensing what other people are feeling. And then the fourth is putting that all together to have effective relationships, to be effective as a leader, to be effective as a spouse or as a partner.
Oh, I love it. And you mentioned one thing, and that is empathy. And lately I hear a lot of people talking about compassion, sympathy, and empathy. And I was always wondering, like, do we really know what those terms mean? Can you?
Yes, there's a lot of technical literature that straightens that out. Sympathy is not the same as empathy. There are 3 kinds of empathy, and it's important to understand the difference. They're each part based in a different part of the brain. There's cognitive empathy. This is kind of a rational empathy. It's understanding how the other person thinks about things, how they see things, what their perspective is. This lets you be an effective communicator because you know the language that they'll understand, so you can put things effectively. The second is emotional empathy, tuning into the other person, feeling in your own body what they feel. And there's a whole set of neural networks that are designed to do this, to create a kind of back channel to the other person's brain through which emotions pass back and forth. And that actually keeps our interaction smooth, keeps them on base. It's rapport. Demands that you have this kind of empathy. The third kind of empathy, which I think every leader needs, and every parent, interestingly, is what's called empathic concern. This means not only do I know what you're thinking and what you're feeling, I actually care about you. And I am someone who has your back. I'm someone who will guide you. It's what a good parent does for a child. Let them know that they're protected, that they're guided, that you're going to help them figure out how to be a human being, that you empathize with them, you know how they feel, you care about them. That doesn't mean that you're going to give in to everything that they want or feel. The same in leadership. You know how people feel, but that determines how you handle them, not what you do. What you do comes from what your goals are, what our team is doing, and so on. But the fact that people who work with you feel that you care about them makes you the kind of boss people want to work for, not the kind of boss people hate.
And that is such a major point in the message that we also keep sharing and also keep finding evidence for. Is there's so much talk about productivity and getting things done and focus and all of that, and I see myself as a coach to team leaders, to middle managers, those people who are stuck in the middle because of expectations. And you speak a lot about compassion and being liked as a boss.
Yes.
How does it help in reality to actually get better results?
Yeah, so being liked doesn't mean you don't have goals. You can have goals. You can have, markers. You can have deliverables. However, it's how you relate to the people that makes all the difference. There was an article, very telling article in the Harvard Business Review called Leadership Gone Amok. That means gone crazy. And it was talking about leaders who drive their people to achieve like quarterly targets, but don't care about the impact it has, how much stress the person is under, the toxic vibes that the leader is putting out. They don't care. All they care about are the numbers. But what that does is make people feel alienated, demotivated, want to leave. It has a very negative effect on the human capital, if you will, on the people that the leader depends on. The art of leadership is getting work done well through other people. And you may achieve your numbers, but if you achieve it in the wrong way, you're not going to have the loyalty, you're not going to have the trust, you're not going to have the rapport that an effective leader needs.
Yeah, it's also a short-term versus long-term thinking. And
exactly.
What I always try to do is translate valuable concepts to very specific actions, things people can do. So team leaders listening right now, they hear this and they're think, yeah. Daniel Goleman, you're brilliant. That makes sense. So I want to spend more energy on building those relationships. What are some specific activities that you can recommend team leaders put in their schedules?
Sure. Here's one. Look at your schedule and ask yourself, do I have anywhere in the next week or month a coaching meeting with my direct report? Which is to say, am I going to have I set time aside to talk to the person, not about the job, but about the person? What do you want from life? What do you want from your career? What do you want from this job? How does that relate to our goals? How can we work together? Maybe I can give you a stretch assignment so you learn some new skills. In other words, it's a kind of conversation that really motivates people because I think every leader, by the way, every executive can be a coach and should be a coach. And since you're a coach, you can tell people this, that they can do for their direct reports what you're doing for them, which is to tune into the other person, see what their personal goals are, see what they need to do to get there, what growth they need perhaps, and then see what you can do to help them. And I think every team leader is the same.
Wow.
I love that. And something that came up in this conversation right now, and actually Lenka and I were talking about it this morning, is what are some of the similarities between great team leaders and parents?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of literature in child development about what's called a secure base parent. A secure base parent is the parent who's good enough, who tunes in, who lets the child know they're cared about, that they're understood, they're listened to, they're heard, but also, as I said before, who sets guidelines, who sets limits, who helps them get where they want to go, but stay in line. And the fellow who developed that, John Bowlby, who's a British psychiatrist, said, we all need a secure base throughout our entire life. And that means that every leader needs to be a secure base for the people that they're working with. Every team needs to feel like a secure base. Secure base means I'm understood here. I'm cared about here. I'm going to work together with these people to achieve our group goals, but we're going to do it in a way where we're transparent. For example, the top teams, there's a lot of good research on this by Vanessa Dreskat at University of New Hampshire. She says the top teams have a number of characteristics. One is they know each other's strengths and limits, and they're open about them. Mm-hmm. So they don't keep it under the carpet. In fact, they have a habit of seeing what the simmering tensions are, surfacing them, and settling them. They have huge trust, amazing rapport. They celebrate wins together. They don't just look at what people do wrong, but they look at how they have accomplished what they needed to accomplish, and they take the time to recognize that, to acknowledge that, and maybe go out and have some beers, whatever. But these are some of the hallmarks of. Now, this is very interesting. Top performing teams, by whatever metric makes sense for that particular team, you find the same dynamic.
Yeah. I love it. One thing that I hear you saying is obviously a balance and understanding your people and listening to them, feeling with them. And what I experienced throughout my career was that a lot of my team leaders, they were somehow trying to push it to the extreme. So either trying to be too much of a friend or trying to too much build an authority. And it was not natural. And then often what I hear is just listen to your heart, listen to your intuition. You would just know what's the right thing. And I figured out that they really don't know what intuition is about, or what does that mean to listen to your heart. Is it something that you help people to develop such a skill?
Well, I remember self-awareness is the core component of emotional intelligence. So you could say that's intuition. In fact, the research on, for example, entrepreneurs who have built businesses from nothing to huge companies shows that when they make a decision, they bring in intuition, but in a particular way. And this is very important. They have huge curiosity. They gather far more information. They look at the numbers. But if it doesn't feel right, this is the intuition part, they may not go ahead with the deal because there's something about every deal, every situation, which you cannot put in a number. For example, can you trust these people?
Yeah.
Are you going to have good chemistry going forward with these people? There's no metric for that. You just have to trust your gut sense. And there's a very well-acknowledged work now by a neurologist, Antonio Damasio, who's at the University of Southern California now, where he talks about the fact that the brain is designed so that we go through life, we go through our career, extracting decision rules from everything that happens. And when we face a decision point, the brain gives us the answer based on our entire life experience. Now, it might be, should I marry this guy versus the other guys I've dated? That's one of those questions there's no metric for either. Or should I leave this job, or should I do this deal? What strategy should we follow going forward? You need to look at the numbers, of course, but you need to also see how they feel to you. That's the intuition. I think it's a combination, it's a mix of those that helps people make the best decisions.
Daniel, when did you find out that you have emotions? and you probably also learned along the way how not to use them, or how you completely forgot to be emotionally intelligent.
Well, I always knew I had emotions. I think I probably learned more about emotional intelligence from my wife than anybody else. She's a psychotherapist. She's written a wonderful book, by the way, called Emotional Alchemy, which is about emotional patterns that we learn in childhood. They're unconscious, but they drive us now. For example, take that hard driving kind of leader that I described in that Harvard Business Review article, the leader who drives people too hard without caring about their emotions. Often they're perfectionists. Perfectionism is a habit you learn in childhood. And what it means is, you brought your grades home from school and your parents only talked about the thing you didn't do well in. They didn't say how great you did in everything else. So you get this habit of being hypercritical of yourself. And then the danger is when you become a leader, you see people through that emotional lens. What they did wrong. You never praise people. You just seize what they did, what wasn't quite good enough, and harangue them about that. Well, that's not a good leadership style. But that's the kind of emotional habit that we bring through life. So I learned a lot from my wife, basically. And then, of course, I got very interested in emotional intelligence and the research on the brain and emotions and so on. And I think doing that work has helped me personally manage my emotions. And the third thing is I'm a lifetime meditator. I was one of the first to look into mindfulness, for example, way before anybody heard of it in the West. And I was in India for 2 years as a graduate student. And that's helped me enormously.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's my personal development journey started 11 years ago, and pretty soon I started to pick up on the notion that meditation is probably a good thing. It still took me years to actually grow into the habit and finding a way of doing it that fits me. Since then, everything is different. Now, what drove you to visit India all the way back then?
And Sri Lanka, I think, as well.
Yeah, I was in Sri Lanka too.
Oh, sorry.
No, India mostly. I was very interested. When I was an undergraduate, I started meditating because it was very calming. I was very anxious. And so it helped me stay calm. And then I went into clinical psychology in graduate school, and I thought, this is a method that could have clinical applications, but nobody knows anything about it. So I went to India. I made it a point to try to find people who are very, very, very advanced in meditation, see what qualities they had, and then to extract from that what anybody could do, the kind of mindfulness movement that you see now. In fact, one person that went with me or that I met over there was a fellow graduate student named Richard Davidson, who's now a neuroscientist at University of Wisconsin. He and I just wrote a book that reviews the more than 6,000 articles, journal articles on meditation. We look at the 60 best. And it shows that from the very beginning of, for example, mindfulness, which is very popular in a lot of companies now, you start to have sharper attention, better memory, and you're calmer. And we know now what the brain changes are that go with that. So at any rate, I found that it helped me a lot manage those emotions that get out of control, the ones that can become destructive. Yeah.
I love it. And I hear many people, we do meditate, and it's a habit that I personally had to develop, because you have always excuses why not to do so, right?
Sure.
But there are many people that say meditation is just not for me. And anyways, even though I meditate for 15 minutes, 30 minutes in the morning, I come to the workplace and it's just gone. So is there something that those people can do to keep that in mind?
They can understand better how meditation actually works. One of the things that people often complain about who say, I can't do this, is that once you start looking at your mind, it seems like your mind is going crazy. Thought after thought after thought. That's the way the mind is always. It's just that we don't bother to notice. So one thing to understand is that that's going to happen at the beginning. That's okay. In fact, what you're doing is changing your relationship to the kind of mad monkey of the mind. And then the other thing is that you're not going to see effects immediately. It's not like magically I meditated 15 minutes and I go to work and everything's lovely. It's not like that. It is what's called the dose-response relationship. And the more you've done it, the more hours you put in over a lifetime, like 15 minutes is 1 hour, the stronger the benefits become. This is what the research shows. And for the person, the actual benefits might be subtle. It might be, oh, I didn't get triggered that time when she said that thing to me that used to get me so upset before. It didn't happen. That's because of the meditation. But it's the absence of something which is harder to notice. And also the third kind of cognitive error often made about meditation is that you should feel great during meditation. Not true. You can feel anyway during meditation. The point is to practice. It's like a mental gym.
Yeah.
There are 4 basic moves. Like if you're meditating on your breath, that's what most people do in mindfulness. You put your attention on your breath. Your mind wanders. That's the way the mind is wired. You notice it wandered. That's the mindfulness. Then you bring it back to the breath. That's like going to the gym and taking a weight, and every time you lift that weight in a repetition, you make that muscle that much stronger. Mm-hmm. And every time you bring your mind back in meditation, you make the neural circuitry for concentration that much stronger. So it's a mental workout, essentially.
And are there any meditation styles better for certain type of people? Or do you simply say, do you know, Lenka, if you prefer meditating based on breath or meditating as yoga nidra, just do it? Or is it something that you say, I should change the styles to really obtain good performance?
What we found is this, Lenka. People can shop around for different meditations, but then they should stick with one. What we've decided is that the very best meditation is whichever one you'll do. It doesn't matter. You get the same benefits at first from most anything.
Love it. That calms me definitely down. I'm 100% honest. I'm still searching for the style that suits me, because I try and certain things are like not yet, or already like done that. Let's just try something else. But now knowing that at the end I should just stick with one, that's good. And finding one.
Yeah, pick the one that you like the best. That's the one that you're going to benefit from.
Yeah.
Because you'll do it.
That makes sense.
It's like developing any skill, like a golf swing, you know.
Yeah.
It's just the more you practice, the better it gets. But you have to stick with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and recognizing those wins that you just spoke of. That is massive. Understanding that, hey, I could have been upset here, but in fact, I was smiling because she was being herself again, and
and I didn't go crazy this time.
Yeah,
that's an accomplishment. That's a change.
That's massive, because it's the confirmation that a growth spiral has started.
Not only that, the best mental state to manage from, or to be a team member from, or to lead from, is always when you're calm and clear. You can take in information fully, analyze it deeply, and respond most nimbly. And if your mind is contracted, which is what happens when we get upset, when we get triggered, then you can't do that. So meditation is one of the things that can help that happen more often. And it's very important in emotional intelligence, because this is key for what that first part, which has to do not just with self-awareness, but self-management, how you handle yourself. Because if you've got goals and you need to achieve those goals, you have to stay in that best state. That's how you're optimally going to function.
I love that. And it's in direct relation with lesson 1. The thing that we always start out with is tell team leaders you need to stay stress-free. When you're in a stressed state, you're hurrying, you cannot think clearly, you damage relationships. So anything you do is not only unproductive, it's destructive. So your number 1 priority is to be in that calm, happy, peaceful state. And so the ability to pull yourself out of a stressful state and turn it back around from red to green, that's where it all starts. So what do you recommend in that regards? Awareness is one, to recognize?
Well, yes. So I think that self-awareness means, let's say you're having a stress episode. That thing happened that triggers you. And there's an arc to that. You get triggered, then you have a biological and a mental reaction. It has a peak, and then it slowly subsides. That could take a minute, an hour, a day, or 2, it could go on and on, depending. So the question is, when do you notice? Because the moment you notice that's happening again, you've begun to shift the energy in the brain from the part of the brain that has that reaction to the part of the brain that knows it has the reaction. Those are 2 different parts of the brain. The amygdala for the reaction in the midbrain, and then the prefrontal cortex, which knows it. And if you can name it, there's that thing again. That she said that thing, and it made me feel that same way. So give it a name, that thing. Because if you can name it, and there's very good neuroscience research on this, if you can name it, it takes more energy away from it and puts more energy in the prefrontal cortex. The definition of resilience, being able to manage stress well, is how long it takes you from the peak of that upset to get back to calm. The quicker, the more resilient you are. They say that maturity is lengthening the gap between your reaction, your impulse, and what you actually do, how you actually react. If you have time to think it through, you're going to make a better reaction.
This is so lovely. And I'm learning it. And I think it's a lifelong journey to learn this. And I just see the more, we have several life areas, and in certain life areas, I'm just doing so well. And in certain life areas, I have so much room to just work on things.
Yeah, just like everybody else. If we're honest with ourselves.
Yeah. Sure. When you think I got this, I really got this. And I was like, no, not yet. There's a lot to work on.
Yeah. This is why I think, by the way, coaching is so important. And I understand you're a coach, which is really wonderful, because it's that one-on-one kind of tutorial where you can really zero in on the person's situation, what their goals are, what they need to develop. I've just started a coaching program on emotional intelligence because after all these years of writing about it, I felt, well, I really should have a way for people to learn to do this well. So coaches are welcome to join this and add it to what they do. And also we have a program, I hope you'll put this in your show notes, for executives to be coaches, to learn to coach, and or also to be coached, depending on what seems most appropriate for them, or for their whole team to go through this process together. Because we find that heightens the ability of a team to actually achieve their goals, to be effective.
Yeah, massively. Massively. We actually, this reminds me of our interview with Peter Senge, where he also emphasized the importance of, first of all, teamwork, and second of all, focusing with the team on the process of working together, rather than only striving for result after result after result.
Yeah. Peter's a friend. He's quite brilliant. We wrote a book together about schools, actually, because we're both advocating that we should be teaching kids these skills. Why wait till they get in the workplace? And not only that, that the next generation, there's a whole movement in what's called social emotional learning.
Mm-hmm.
It's very active in your country, in the Netherlands, but also globally. And in our book, we suggest that the next stage is to do three things: to teach kids focusing or mindfulness, these concentration and calming skills, to teach kids to care about other people, other kids, and this makes them that kind of secure-based leader or teammate. And the third is a systems awareness, which Peter, of course, is really expert in, systems thinking, because we think these are going to be skill sets for the future. It's not just about managing yourself and your relationships, but these are kind of an upgrade to all of that.
I love it. So there are actually already schools applying this concept.
One of them is the International Baccalaureate Schools, which actually has its headquarters at The Hague in Netherlands. They brought Peter and I in, and they developed a curriculum they call compassionate systems awareness, which is teaching kids to understand systems. But it's not just to understand them, to care about the consequences. I mean, when you're going to make a decision, you can ask. I heard the Dalai Lama say this at a systems conference at MIT. He said, when you're making a decision, ask yourself, who benefits? Is it just you or your group? Just your group or everybody? And is it only for now or for the future? These are big, deep questions about the consequences of what we do. And I think that the values orientation, which is an important dimension too, which self-awareness helps you with, the values dimension is going to matter more and more as young people particularly are more influenced by, do I want to join this company? Well, what is their value proposition?
Yeah.
It's just about making money. The generation now in control, for them, for us, it was fine, just about making money. For young people, millennials and below, the sense of purpose and meaning, the value plus of a company or an organization is more and more important. And if you want to attract and retain the best of the brightest going into the future, it's more important than ever to be able to address the value dimension too.
Mm. You talk about purpose, right? I am a millennial, Alexander, as well, and that's true. Like, we are constantly searching for the right activity to do throughout our life to fulfill our needs and what we really want to do. And I do remark that millennials also burn out quite often, especially here. I think 1 out of 7 people in the Netherlands have burnout symptoms. And I'm just wondering, do you see any pattern in this?
Yes, I do. The best kind of job is what my friend at Harvard, Howard Gardner, calls good work. Good work means it draws on what you're skilled at, what you're excellent at. Also, what you love doing, what engages you, and aligns with your values, with your ethics. If you have excellence at what you're doing, you love doing it, engagement, and it fits your sense of meaning and purpose, then you're going to have work you love to do. You'll never burn out with that work. Yeah. You may work 10 times as hard as the next person, but you love it because it means something, you're good at it, and you enjoy it. On the other hand, if you have work that maybe doesn't fit your skill set, maybe it doesn't engage you, disengagement is rampant in the working world. It's a big problem in large companies. And also, if it feels wrong to you, this isn't what my sense of values say I should be doing, you're more likely to burn out.
Yeah, that's 100% my case. You just described me.
Oh, no, really?
2.5 years ago, I burned out. And that's actually when I started to work with self-awareness, self-reflection. And I figured out that throughout my whole life, I've done so many things very well. I had great achievements. And I literally did not enjoy any of them really, really consciously. Like it was more of that I do it subconsciously because my parents really said I'm good at that, or because my teachers told me, or status, or ego.
But not from inside, not from your own heart.
And that's the whole thing. I did believe that it is coming from my heart. There was no awareness of having a heart telling me something. It was just constantly my brain telling me, oh yeah, this is your heart telling you you're really good at this. So just go and do it. You know, it earns you good money. And once you hit the rock bottom, and I wish most of people get self-aware before they hit the rock bottom, then you see that there is such a big difference between your brain and your heart, your intuition, and your emotions.
Yeah. And now you're doing something you love doing.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see that.
And the big step was just like saying to myself, hey, Linka, you know, you don't have to have the manager, executive, whichever position. Just do what you love and accept the fact I am energy healer. I love Reiki, and that's really what I love doing.
Oh, wonderful. And there you go.
Yeah.
And you're happy. You're not going to burn out doing that.
No.
Fits my theory perfectly. Thank you.
You're welcome. Daniel, is it something that you learned at a very young age to be emotionally aware? Is it something that your parents, because your parents are professors, if I'm right?
Yeah. So my father taught a course called Autobiography of Civilization. Mm-hmm. Used world literature to show basically that the human condition is the same everywhere. My mother was a clinical social worker. So, you know, she was dealing with feelings, but I don't think I really was that aware as a kid. Mm-hmm. I don't think I learned directly from my parents, maybe by osmosis. Mm-hmm. I think it was more a journey that got me into clinical psychology in graduate school, and then to India, and then into my relationship with my wife. That helped a lot. And so it's been constant learning. I can't say at any one point, that's where I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to zoom in a little bit on the coaching program, because I do believe it's going to be outstanding program. I don't know if there are any coaching programs such as yours about just purely emotional intelligence. So I would like to more zoom in that and ask you, for who is this coaching program suitable?
Okay, so the program is for people who are either executive or life coaches. The next round is actually in Europe. We found a place outside Vienna, and the reason we did that was we did the first one in the States, but the demand and the interest is worldwide. So we're trying to make it easier for people to get there. And it's a very intensive program. It takes a year. And you get coached, and you coach someone, and you're supervised coaching them. So it's very hands-on. We have an assessment tool which looks not just at the 4 parts of emotional intelligence, but the specific abilities or competencies that nest within each. So, for example, within self-management, there are 3 or 4. One is how well you handle your upsetting emotions. One is, do you motivate yourself to achieve your goals? Another is, can you stay positive? Another is, can you be adaptable? Mm-hmm. And there are 12 competencies, and you can be very strong in some and not so good in others, mm-hmm. and so in others. And it's important to have that diagnosis before you start the coaching journey. So the coaches go through that process, and then they help other people through the process. And for each competence, there are different learning experiences that we give people that help them get further strengths in those abilities. So it's a program that's never existed before, and I'm very happy that we're able to do it now. It's at Key Step Media, one word, Key Step Media. There's a coaching program. We have primers on each of the 12 competencies. And we, as I said, we have a series of programs. Some are for like managers who want to be coach leaders, want to coach their people. You could go through with your team. There are many, many options there.
Wow. And those the coaching program of the emotional intelligence, imagine that they are beginner coaches. Is it also suitable for them, or is it only for coaches who have already certain experience?
We do both. People who are just starting out coaching, And people who have done coaching for years go through it because they want this as part of their skill set. There are many, many coaching programs, but they don't necessarily help you with people's emotional intelligence. That's why we're offering this.
Love it. So they don't have to have any client list, anything like this. They can just go through this program.
No, anybody can go through it. Absolutely.
Okay, brilliant. That's clear.
What do you notice is typically the trigger for people to participate in such a program? And the reason I'm asking is, as I hear about the program, I'm forming this picture in my mind of, of a department or an organization that says, you know what Daniel says makes sense. So instead of doing strategy the same as last year and the year before, the year before, the year before, saying, let's take last year's target, add 10%, and let's make it work. Let's do something completely else, because I think there's a lot of value in here. Is it organizations that kind of hit a wall of stress in the years before that now search for something else? Or is it let's say the modern, sustainable, conscious organizations that use happiness as a strategy and are looking to take it to the next level?
Yeah, I think it can be any of those, actually. It can be a company that's not doing well, that's trying to get its game together, or it can be a company that's doing well but wants to do better. The idea, it's just what Peter Senge said. You want to pay attention to the process, not just the goal, not just the strategy. You only get to, whatever your strategy is, you're only going to get there through people. Mm-hmm. So you need to look at, how are people working together? How is your leadership? How are people very uneven? One of the problems often is that people get promoted to a team leader because they're very good individual contributors, but they don't necessarily have leadership skills. That's not what got them there. There's a saying, what got you here won't get you there. Yes. In other words, in order to get better, it's a constant learning curve.
Commercial, yeah.
Very often, what people need is a better grip on emotional intelligence. That's why they come. That's why people will bring this to their organizations, or will add it to their coaching skill set.
Super powerful. I'm very excited about that. And what I'm also very interested in is whether you or someone else has already conducted studies that show that indeed companies or businesses or departments or leaders achieve better results when, let's say, positive emotions are a priority.
It's not just positive emotions. It's being able to manage your emotions effectively and harness your emotions, whatever they are. And the person who's done the best research on this is Richard Boyatzis, who's a colleague of mine. He's at Case Western School of Management. He's done years and years of research. For example, one of his findings was a little surprising. He teaches his students, executive MBAs or MBAs, how to get better at emotional intelligence, and he tracks them. And he found that 20 years later, people who had a strength in adaptability had the best career success and career satisfaction, and also life satisfaction. That was a surprise. It was kind of an undervalued competence, adaptability, but it turns out to be key for both your career and for your life.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Like when I picture life, I picture basically being a surfer. And, it's about finding the right waves. And, sometimes you let a few opportunities pass by, you find the right wave, you adjust, so you're adaptable to whatever the situation. Yeah. And that way, when you really find your flow, then things seem to happen automatically, and you can just be yourself and things automatically fall in place.
That's true.
The word flow hasn't been mentioned yet.
Well, flow is when people operate at their best. And from a cognitive neuroscience point of view, it's a state of optimal cognitive efficiency. Whatever skill set you have, you're using it at your best. One of the entryways into flow is full concentration. So the meditation we're talking about makes flow more likely. Another is to match the challenge to your skill set at the top of the set, so that you're you're drawing on your best skills at their height. These are different ways that flow can happen. It's kind of magical because you can't make it happen, you can allow it. And one of the aspects of flow that's really, I think, very telling is it feels good. People say, I felt terrific
Yeah.
because I was using my skill set at top performance. It's that good work that I talked about.
Yeah, and what really struck me about flow is that this prefrontal cortex, so the thinking part of the brain, is just not playing any role.
I would put it differently. I would say it's playing whatever role it should be playing at its best without effort. It's also an effortless state. People say in the flow research, it was done at University of Chicago, they say, I outperform my own expectations, but it seemed effortless. It was so easy because you get into that state. And part of the magic of the state is that only the neural networks that you need for the task at hand are active and the rest is quiet. That means you're undistracted. So focus and concentration is critical to get and stay in flow.
Yeah. It's so powerful, and this is also something I studied business for 5.5 years in one of the top business schools in Europe, and I learned a lot of models and theories and stuff. But a word like flow, I don't remember it being mentioned. Stick with me. And
neither emotions or focus,
for that matter.
It was just like concentrate and do and learn by heart. And thereby I don't really know that much from school. I learn everything by heart. I know that we have to have emotions to learn. So yeah, it was really never mentioned.
Well, you could put it differently. I would say you learn best what matters most to you.
Yeah.
And very often what you learn in school and anything, including in business, it's not so relevant to the actual challenges you find once you go to work. Then you have real motivation to learn how to do this well. But that's the kind of learning that comes, I would say, very naturally, because you have that interest, keen interest from motivation, unlike when you were in school and you had an exam and you had to memorize this and that, and that. But that doesn't really give you a skill set for work life. People learn so much more once they're on the job than when they're in school.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
I want to ask a typical, really millennial question, because you've been thinking about these massive concepts a lot. You've been zooming out really far, zooming in really far to focus on these bigger questions. And there's just one big question that we'll start asking when we are, 3, 4, 5 years old, and we don't really get an answer, and we just forget about it for the rest of our lives. Now, what have you concluded to be the purpose of this whole thing? You being here in this body, I mean...
Well, it's changed. It's changed. When I was younger, I thought it was about my own success. As I got older, I thought it was really more about everyone's success. And now I'm thinking it's about the future of the planet and the people on it. So I would say that my focus for purpose and meaning has been expanding. And now it's pretty expansive. I feel that the planet is facing something it's never faced before. People on it are facing something we've never faced before. It's of compelling importance, and it's starting to dawn on businesses that this matters. I was just talking to someone who's coaching very high levels at Unilever, a Dutch company. And one of the things they've done is to take serious sustainability targets as a priority for the business. And this is not only because it's the right thing to do, it turns out it's making them an employer of choice. Younger people, talented younger people, feel good working for a company that cares. about what happens to the people on the planet. And I think that as the conditions on the planet get more and more urgent in decades to come, this will matter more and more.
I love that. And that's the thing. These are the kind of bigger questions. They're very valuable to think of. I mean, when you anyway choose a job, just think about the bigger picture rather than finding it out a couple of years later, and you waste years of your life.
Yeah, if you're in not everyone can find a job that fits this sense of meaning and purpose. I think you have to see jobs as ladders, steps along the way to where you want to go. Yeah. If you're lucky, you'll find a job that does fit that early on, but not necessarily. It may take a while. That's okay. You're going to learn things along the way that will help you toward that goal.
Yeah. I have a few more questions still that are on my mental list. And one of them is it true that women are more emotionally intelligent than men? We often hear that.
Generally, remember the 4 parts, and people can be good at some parts and not so good at others. Women tend to be better at certain kinds of empathy and also in a lot of relationship skills. Men tend to be better, for example, at handling upsetting emotions or self-confidence in some situations. Interestingly, if you look at the competencies of men and women, in the emotional intelligence domain, you find on average women tend to outscore men, but in the top 10% performers, the people that are stars, there's no difference between men and women. The men are just as empathic as the women are just as confident and able to manage emotions as the men. So I would say part of the learning curve is for each gender to master what the other gender may have more naturally.
Great. It just proves kind of what I hoped and believed in. And we see it how we work together with Alex. Obviously, we come from different cultures and having different set of beliefs and values and cultural histories. And we really learn from each other. Like Alex said at the beginning, he is more of the thinker and I'm more of the feeler. And the longer we live together and we are 24/7 together and we work together, the more we really influence each other on a very positive level so that we see that harmony and balance in ourselves. It's really nice.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. And another question. We talk with influential leaders and you are one of them. And I do believe that often people have a little bit we don't really know how you guys live, right? So you have big names and you left impression and you have a huge impact on humankind. So I'm wondering, how does your life look like 1 week of Daniel?
Well, my wife and I just moved to a house that's under construction. So we often live with plumbers and, builders of different kinds. We have 2 little horses. One, an Icelandic that we brought over from Denmark, and another, a miniature. And so we take care of the horses. Our grandchildren are a couple hours away now. Sometimes they come down and visit us. Tomorrow I'll go to Boston to give a talk to a biotech company in Boston. That's kind of typical. Sometimes I just did a European tour in the fall of 5 different cities, and I'll go back next spring. So I do a combination of lecturing, writing, and feeding horses.
I love this. So you seem like you're pretty much a normal human being, which makes it way more accessible to the rest of the world.
I would say I'm a totally normal human being. Absolutely. Yeah.
I just love this. People often see and we've seen it with Marshall Goldsmith as well and Peter Senge. You are such a lovable, nice, friendly people, and so many people somehow see you and it's completely from a different planet. And it's just
not
so
true.
nice.
Not true. I grew up in a farm town in California. And that kind of stuff. The guy who grew up in the next town on a ranch is George Lucas. the guy who did Star Wars.
Oh,
You never know. There's no particular background that makes someone, someone that you're going to hear about.
yeah,
People with all kinds of lives end up doing all kinds of interesting things.
I love it. Do you have, Alex, any more questions? Or did you ask the most important ones?
No, the main question on my mind is if you had any additional questions on your mental list. And then the main question I have for Daniel is, of course, for all the leaders listening to this, these top 10% people that want to reach the top 1%, what do they do next?
I'd recommend these programs that we've just set up to help people get even better in this domain of skill, because I think it's the core of leadership that works.
So we will definitely share all of the links in the show notes, together with your website, together with where people can research more about the coaching programs that you guys offer. And for those really big fans that say, okay, I'm sure, when does the coaching program in or close by Vienna start?
It starts in May.
Okay.
And they just opened enrollment, so there's time to get in. Yeah.
Cool. So we have all time to get ready and have a look at it and subscribe and watch a few more of your videos. I love it. It's always something new to learn.
And you're all invited.
I already visited the website this afternoon, and I saw also that it's really easy to request a free ebook with more inspiration.
Yes, we have one on empathy.
Yes.
Yeah. And as you say, it's free.
Even better, especially
that's the right price.
That's people really love everything that is for free, so it's even better. Daniel,
thank you.
Thank
it's been
you.
a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Yeah. It was so much fun. I learned a lot, and I'm so excited to dive into all of your materials and see how the results after the first coaching that you're going to be doing in Vienna is going to be.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It was a lot of fun.
Good to hear that. All the best on your wonderful mission. And
likewise.
We are here
likewise to you guys.
Great stuff. Thank you very much.
Keep up the good work.
We will.
Thank you. We will.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Wow, that was such a nice interview. You know, at the beginning, like when you think of, I'm gonna speak to Daniel Goleman, and I bought his book years ago and I had never ever imagined I'm gonna get a chance to speak to him. So I must admit, I've been slightly nervous. But the moment that this video popped and I've seen his face, it was just so nice. And you could hear we had really lots of laugh and we learned, and he even confirmed my point that he's just a human being. That made me feel really, really good about myself. So it was really nice. And I'm curious, guys, like, do you feel like being more emotionally intelligent is gonna make your life first easier and happier? Definitely lighter. Like I see in my case and Alexa's case, we tremendously benefit from learning every single day more about self-awareness and self-management in general, about emotional intelligence. And well, I'm seriously considering to subscribing for Damien's coaching program.
It was very powerful.
Yeah.
He touches upon the big topics, so the big questions that are typically forgotten.
Yeah.
So any executive, any leader, team leader, manager, you know, when you have the capability of thinking strategically and stepping out of the status quo and designing the perfect team, you can be 2 times, 5 times, 10 times more productive simply by living in coherence with these type of principles. That's why I love that we managed to present Daniel Goleman to you. Now, of course, what is the next step? When you got inspired and you feel, hey, this is a topic that I can benefit from greatly, go to danielgoleman.info. That's his personal website, danielgoleman.info, for the coaching program that we've been talking about. For you, whether you're a coach or a manager, leader who wants to coach better, keystepmedia.com/coaching. And finally, we will also share in the show notes the link to his other courses It's marketplace.geteverwise.com/collections/Daniel Goleman. You can find all of these links in the show notes. I also personally love following people on social media.
Absolutely, Twitter.
Yeah, he's a lot on Twitter, so there you go.
And plenty of videos on YouTube, lots of free resources, guys. Like, when you want to increase the chances of being happy and have amazing relationships, wherever you are, workplace, at home, with your kids, with your spouse, just go and invest some time into yourself and into your emotional intelligence. I am excited. I am going to do and read more about it and research about it, and I'm sure that you are going to do the same. And
thank you for listening. This was another episode given to you by Earn More Work Less. We give superpowers to team leaders. earnmoreworkless.com. And next week we'll be back with another thought leader, another inspirational episode. So thank you for listening. Now let's go out, influence people, create beautiful things, and
have fun.